Hey everyone, it's Tom from Career Champ here. We're going to do a walkthrough of QTAC today and talk a bit about how that application works for anyone who wants to apply in 2021. So the first thing to do, if you're wanting to apply to universities and some TAFE courses in Queensland, is to go to qtac.edu.au and click Apply or Login. If you haven't used QTAC before, then you don't have an account, so you'll need to create an account before you can make an application. Clicking on this button here, you can make an account. You only need a few things to make an account. You need a personal email. If you're still at school, you probably have a school email, but don't use this for your QTAC application because you will probably find that your school shut down your email before QTAC offers come out. So you really need to make sure that you're using a personal email. That's how QTAC will contact you. So you want to actually get their communications. So make sure you put a personal email in here. The password has rules. You need to have uppercase character, lowercase character, number, and a special character as well. Okay, so we can hit continue. This is where we can see the customer declaration. You can't use QTAC unless you accept this. So you're probably going to accept this without reading it in too much detail. But if you want to have a read, it'll tell you a bit more about how they'll use your personal information. If you're a Year 12 student, this is a box here for giving consent or not, well actually to withhold your consent to release your ATAR to your school. And usually schools would like to see your ATAR. It's only going to go to a few people and it helps your school to help you if they need to, between when ATARs come out and when your QTAC application needs to be in. Or needs to be updated, because you have a few days where you can update your preferences between when your ATAR comes out and the December offer round happens. Okay. This is a dummy account, so I'm not going to put my full real name in here. Cool. And now that I've done that, I've created an account. In order to actually verify it, I have to go to my email address and click on the link. This is what the email will look like. You just have to click on the link and it will verify. Yep, perfect. It'll verify that that email is connected to that account and easy done. Now you can go back to the page where you first put in your information, hit home, and you should be able to log in here now. Awesome. Okay, so this is what the application page looks like. Or sorry, this is what your account will look like once you've logged in to QTAC. If you want to start your application, this is where you go to the Apply Now. If you need to edit things about your account, you can go in here, and we'll just have a quick look at that. You can see there's a few different things that you can do in here. We'll talk more about allowing permission a little bit later, because that's a part of your QTAC application. But we can look at account information here. Cool, okay, there's a bit of info. It's got my account number. Under My Details, we can see this section here isn't editable. So if you find out that the name that you've put into your QTAC application isn't correct, and you need to update it because maybe you need it to match your QCAA learning account, then you'll have to call QTAC to make any changes. You can't actually do it yourself. But you can change this information here. You can change your address, your contact details, your USI number if you want to input that. If you have it, it's not an essential part of the application. And you can also change your optional consent about the ATAR in here. So if you click to this box when you first created your account, but actually you've changed your mind, you do want your school to be able to see the information, you can come back in here and change it. Okay, let's jump back. Oh, no. Home. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so if you want to start your application, this is where to go. And we'll have a look at this because there's quite a few steps and it can be helpful to have someone talk you through because a couple of them are a bit confusing. I'm going to do this as a non-Year 12 applicant because I don't have a LUI, L-U-I, the Learner Unique Identifier number. I don't have one of those to use. and to show you exactly what it looks like if you're a Year 12, but we'll talk a little bit about it because it'll be a slightly different application if you are doing it as a Year 12 student. Okay, this is the same though. You put in some personal details there. You can put in an address here. We'll just skip this step. Actually, let's just put in I'm blind, it's right at the top. Let's just do like a Queen Street address that doesn't exist. Let's do that. Yes, we'll say the postal's the same. That's fine. Yep. And we'll just put our postcode as 400. All right. We'll put in a fake mobile. But you would want to put in your real mobile here because the other thing that QTAC will do, in addition to emailing you, is send you texts. So when an offer comes out and you can view it in your account, they will send you a text to say, hey, come and check it, you've got an offer. So you definitely want them to have your mobile. Okay, so some students who are in Year 12 this year will have a UZ. If you're not in Year 12 and you've done some other kind of study, then you probably have one as well. From this year, it's been required for university students to have a USI. In the past, it was just students doing VET qualifications. So if you've done a certificate, 1, 2, 3, or 4, or a diploma at a VET provider like TAFE, you should have a UZ somewhere. It's not required that you put it in your in your QTAC application, but it can be helpful. So I usually suggest just pop it in there. It makes it easier for QTAC to get your VET qualifications. And in Queensland, VET qualifications have really favourable selection ranks attached to them. So it's really good for QTAC to have that information. So pop it in if you have one. If you don't have one, that's fine. If you don't remember what your UZ is and you think you have one, then probably, if you're at school, talk to your VET coordinator. If you're not at school, you can jump on the UZ website and usually try and retrieve it using some other personal information. Okay, so English is my first language. If it's not your first language, you can click no, and we'll ask you some more questions to try and figure out if you meet the English language proficiency requirement for university entry. You can see over here, English language proficiency is a requirement for entry to all institutions where QTAC is administering the application process. So you have to prove it in some way. So one of the ways is to have done your secondary education in English. And that's usually the case for any onshore international students who maybe don't speak English as a first language. They'll say no and then yes. If that's not the case for you, you can see there's some other information here, some other questions. You might have done a proficiency test and you can put that information in. Or you might be sitting one soon and you can put that information in. So for me, English is my first language, but if English isn't your first language, there's a little bit more information you can put in here. It's really lagging. Come on. All right, let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so this is a question that a lot of people get confused about. And it's something I mentioned just a moment ago because you can also see the allow permission information in your account. This question is asking, do you want anyone else to be able to act on your behalf on your QTAC application? They have to be over 18 and they will get full access to your application. It's really helpful if you know you're going to be away at some point over the next few months. So you might be away when an application cycle, an offer round happens, and maybe you're not sure that you're going to have great internet when the offers come out. You might want someone to be able to accept an offer on your behalf. You might also just find that you hate talking on the phone. You want someone else to be able to call up and ask questions for you or make changes for you. And in that case, you would add someone on here. If you decide later that you want to add someone and you've selected no now, that's fine. You can do it later. As you saw in your account, you can add someone on there. The kind of information you need, we can see here, you need the date of birth of the person who is going to be able to access your account. For a lot of young people, it's a parent, and it's a parent that you trust. You can put in here their relationship to you. It doesn't have to be a parent, as you can see here. It could be a friend. If you're an international student, it might be that you give access to your agent. And you can put in their address here as well, and you need to know their contact details. So personal email address, mobile number. At the moment, I'm going to say no. Okay, educational access scheme. You may know about this. Most states have something like this. The educational access scheme allows students who've experienced some kind of disadvantage in their most recent study to tell QTAC about that. It doesn't get passed along to the universities, but QTAC might give you adjustments which can make your selection rank or your ATAR more competitive. So there's a bit more information here, if you follow these links, about each category of EAS and the kind of documentation you'd need to provide if you say that you're going to apply. It's a good idea to not tick you're going to apply and then not actually apply, because it can delay your offers. So if you're going to apply, tick it and make sure you actually do the documents and submit them with plenty of lead time so you don't miss out on an offer. But you can see as we scroll down, there's a lot more information in here about what might make you eligible to use the EAS. You can get up to 6 adjustments in each category and up to 10 across all categories. But the number of adjustments you can get total at a university is actually potentially less than that. So each university has its own caps on adjustments. ACU allow 12 adjustments, so you could potentially get 10 across EAS if you had experienced enough challenges to add up to 10 points. Griffith allow 8, QT allow 10, UQ allow 5. So if you've experienced some kind of challenge, definitely apply under here. Have a look at the paperwork. It's not too difficult to do. But yeah, if you're not super sure, I wouldn't tick it now and then forget about it, because you may find that it impacts on your offers. You can, if you don't tick something now, add an EAS application later. If you want to do some more reading about it and you think, oh, actually, yes, I am eligible, come back and do it later. You can add it later. That's not a big deal. Okay. QTAC needs some demographic information about you. And if you have received any kind of adjustments while you've been at school or in other studies that you've done, if you have some kind of learning difficulty or disability, mental health issue, definitely it's worthwhile considering connecting with the disability services at the institution that you're going to study at. They can do a lot to support you. They can do reasonable adjustments to your studies to make it more manageable. And it's a really good idea to get in early, because having worked in tertiary institutions in the past, I know it can get super, super busy in those sorts of services. And it's really frustrating if you're trying to get in to get some support and you're finding that it takes several weeks and your studies have already started, and maybe it's making it harder because you're not getting any adjustments. So I'd always suggest trying to get in before the semester starts. Meet with somebody, make a plan, get the adjustments in place if you need them. So if you get the information early by clicking yes here, then that gives you a good chance of getting in for an appointment early. They kind of want to know if you're first in family to go to university here. The reason is some universities have support services specifically for people who are first in family to go to university. So if you say yes, they might send you some information about that. And those services can be really handy, because if you haven't had an immediate family member go to uni, it's sometimes a little hard to know what to expect, and you can connect with other people who are in the same boat. Obviously, it's your choice whether or not you connect with those people, but it's nice to know if there's support available. Similar kind of situation here. If you identify as being from any of these backgrounds, then you could potentially get some information about support available at the university or TAFE that you go to. A lot of unis and TAFEs now have support services for students from all these different backgrounds, so that's awesome. This final part here is just statistical data that the Australian government requires, and this happens across all the different tertiary admission centres across Australia. It's de-identified. No one in the federal government knows that the data came from you, but they want to collect data about who's actually applying to study. So you can put in here, where were you born? If you were born outside of Australia, when did you come to Australia? And then your language at home, some information about your parents, and the highest level of education that they've attained. And this is just an example. I speak English at home. I was born in Australia. And there's a bit of info there. And here we go. Cool. So we can move on to the next stage. Okay. So if you're an elite athlete, and usually that means if you have competed for a state squad, or if you've been in a state team competing at a national level, if you've been higher than that, so you've competed at a national or international level, then you would be eligible for elite athlete schemes. Not all universities have them. As you can see here, most universities have them, but the different sort of supports that are available can vary. So most universities will be able to do great stuff for you when you get there. So they'll help you with timetabling, they'll help arrange placement around your sporting commitments. They might be able to defer exams for you. I know some, universities who are already working on plans for when the Olympics are here. So there's lots of support available when you get there. Some universities will also help you to get in by recognizing your sporting commitments and how they may have impacted on your studies. So we can see here, elite athletes may receive adjustments to their ATAR. Not all universities give adjustments. So for example, UQ don't, but a lot of the other universities do. And it's good to look at each university in more detail to find out how many adjustments they might give, and also if there's any exclusions. So for example, Griffith give adjustments to elite athletes, but they exclude some of their programs from those adjustments. So for example, physiotherapy. You can't use elite athlete adjustments to make yourself more competitive for Griffith's physiotherapy program, but you can use it on a lot of other programs. So that's cool. A lot of these elite athlete programs also require you to apply directly to the university. And that's when you would provide documentation from your coaches and your sporting association to say, yes, this is my history. These are the competitions I've been in. This person can back me up and say that's definitely what's happened. So yeah, make sure if you're interested in this and you think you're an elite athlete, tick yes, and then look into the unis that you're interested in studying at, figure out what their processes are. And if you need to make a separate application directly to the unis, do that as well. And you can usually use the same paperwork across all the different unis. You just have to put in a few separate applications. I'm not an elite athlete by any means, so let's say no for me. Okay, so now we're looking at the education and experience section. We can see up the top on the sort of breadcrumbs here, all the different steps of the application. There's a lot. Yeah, we can see this is the next step. We've just done all the personal details, given them a bit of info about our circumstances, and now we're going to look at, okay, what kinds of experience and education do we have? This is the section which QTAC will use to assess you for entry to university and TAFE. So most of the time they're using something like Year 12 results, or maybe university study or vet study, to assign a selection rank to you. You can see down the bottom here, there's a few other options for information you might enter. If you have been in the defence or in an emergency services role, then QTAC can assign a selection rank to your work experience. They can assign a selection rank to the work experience in just other forms of employment as well. I guess with defence and emergency, they also look at the qualifications you might have received in those areas. And then for some students, they do admissions tests as a way of getting a rank to get into university. The most common one in Queensland is something called STAT, which is the Special Tertiary Admissions Test. Year 12 students can't do this. So if you're in Year 12, then you're not worrying about this. But if you're not a school leaver at the moment, then STAT is something that is an option for you. And sometimes students will do something like the Cert 4 in Adult Tertiary Preparation, which is like a tertiary admissions program, runs for 6 months. They do that program to get a rank, and then they might do the STAT as well, because the STAT can boost up the rank from Adult Tertiary Prep. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, if you're a school leaver, you're going to say yes. Let's say you're in Queensland, you're probably doing the QCE. Most Queensland students are. But if you're at one of the few schools that do the IB, you would actually say IB, and then you'd put in your student number. For Queensland students, this is your LUI, the Learner Unique Identifier that I mentioned before. That's the number you need to put in here. If it's not correct, if it doesn't match up with the name you added to your account, then you can't proceed past this step. And you'll need to have a chat to QTAC or QCAA to figure out why the number isn't correct. It might also be that you need to double check with your school. And often your schools can help with sorting out if there's like an issue with the spelling of your name. I don't have a fake LUI, so I'm going to say no. And I can show you a bit more about these other sections then. Okay. I'm going to say I haven't, but let's just look at what it would look like if I said yes. So if I had done school in the past, I could put some more details in here about the type of study, the state, the name of my school, and my LUI. I could put in here again so that QTAC can get the information about my studies from the QCAA, the Queensland Curriculum and Assessment Authority. That's if I was doing my studies in Queensland. Same kind of thing would apply if you were coming from another state up into Queensland. You can put the information in here. QTAC can communicate with that authority and pull the data across into their system. I'm actually going to say no, but most people will have information to put in here. It's totally fine if you don't. There's other things you can add in here. You might say, actually, yeah, I've done a qualification and I want to use my qualification as my selection rank to get into uni. You can put in here, okay, cool, what have I done? I've done some tertiary study. I did it in 2019 to 2019. I just did 1 year in Australia. Let's say I did just a bit of a bachelor degree. So say I did a bit of a Bachelor of Arts. We can put that in here. The student number isn't required, so that's fine. I'll say full-time because that's the most common way that someone would do tertiary bridging. And I've written an article about that if you want to know more about pathways. That's one of the options. It can give you quite a competitive selection rank, especially in Queensland. Let's say not complete, but I did a full-time year. And we'll keep going. And QTAC will go looking for my GPA. If I was passing, I'd have a selection rank of 93. If I was doing better than passing, I could have a selection rank up to 99.95, which is pretty great. Okay, didn't put that data in. It did not like that. It's really struggling to admit this. Let's say I've got no other qualifications at the moment. Maybe that's the problem. Alright, great. I'm going to say I haven't done any defence or emergency services work. And for school leavers, you won't see these steps usually. But it's good to know that they're here. I don't want to put any employment in on my application because I want to use my university marks. If you have been in the workforce for a fairly long time, you might put your employment details in because QTAC can assign a rank to your work experience. Usually, it's not going to be as competitive as the rank that you could receive from doing a year of university study. So if you have the option to put both of those pieces of information in, always put the university study in. If you want to put employment in as well, absolutely go for it. It's not going to harm your application at all. QTAC will always look for the highest selection rank that they can find based on all the info you give it. And then they'll use that highest selection rank to assess you for entry. All right, cool. So that part's done. We've given them all the information they're going to use to give us a selection rank. And then we can put in our course preferences. This is the really exciting part. And I think a lot of people, think a lot about their preference list, which is really important because you want to be strategic about how you preference. And because some courses will offer on different dates, you have to think about that as well. QTAC do have some great info up on their site and in some of their presentations about how to preference and the way that they would suggest doing it to maximize your chances. So definitely go check that sort of stuff out. We'll just put in some example courses in here just to see what the preference list looks like when it's got stuff in it. Okay, so let's say the reason I did a Bachelor of Arts for a year was because I really wanted to move into this course and I didn't get the rank when I first finished school. I took some time off and then I came back and I decided, yeah, this is what I really want to do. I've done some arts and now I want to move across because I got a great GPA from my first year of study. Now let's maybe put some other options on there. Let's say I'm also interested in QT. I just want the straight law degree, so I'm going to go looking for that. I know it's here somewhere. It should be here somewhere. Gosh, who knows where it is. Yeah, so one of the things you can do if you're really finding it hard to find a course, and this is what I suggest to a lot of people, is get on the course search on the QTAC website, because it's a little bit easier to use than trying to use the course search in your application. So if we jump on here, we search laws at QT, we can scroll through a list that's mostly on the one page, and that's the one we want. Okay, so we want the single law degree because QT don't have arts. If we copy this course code, we can go back to the search. We'll clear this as well, and we'll pop the course code in here and search on this side. And then awesome, we can see there's two different course options that come up. And this is really important. Always have a look at the start month and the offer round date, because you might, if you're not paying attention to that, you might put a course that starts mid-year onto your preference list, and that can really confuse the system. And if this course here, so if we add that one on and we put it at the top, if that was a preference list that someone had submitted, they wouldn't get an offer at the end of the year, because the offer rounds for this course, which are at the top, are going to block the QTAC system from looking at these other courses that have an earlier offer round date. So you always want to put the courses with the early offer round date at the top of your preference list. And usually you're going to put them all, whoops, there we go. Usually you're going to put, a bunch of courses with the same offer round date listed here on your preference list, and you're going to organize them by, which one you want the most. Let's just think, okay, that's enough for the moment. Pretend that that's my preference list. I'm really keen. I know that my ATAR is really high now, or my selection rank, sorry. It's not an ATAR, but it works the same way. Because my GPA is so good, I know what my selection rank is, and it's, say it's 99. I could feel pretty confident about that preference list. You can never know exactly what the cutoffs for courses are going to be each year. They're always set by how many students apply. But I know that the QUT Bachelor of Laws program has had a cutoff at 87 for several years. So I can feel pretty confident that my 99 selection rank is going to get me in. I'm not as confident with UQ, but I know last year that the cutoff was 97, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm hoping it'll get me in, and I don't really want to put anywhere else on there. I'm thinking those are the two places I'm keen to go to. I've had a great time at USQ, but I want to move to one of these universities now, and yeah, that's where I'm at. Okay, I've put my course preferences in. The good thing to know is if I've submitted this and I change my mind, I can definitely change my preferences later. You get 3 free preference changes with QTAC. That's great. You can come back. Okay, scroll down. This is all looking good. Cool, I'm happy with this at the moment. Continue. Yep, that's all fine. I think all that information's right. Cool. Continue. I don't have a voucher. Some schools will give students vouchers. And that will be how you pay for your application. If you're a school leaver, the price is not $79. It's usually something like $46. But because I've put in my education and experience that I'm not a school leaver, the price is slightly higher for me. I have a couple options. If I use BPay, it's going to take like 3 to 4 days to go through. Credit cards, pretty much instant. So if you're rushing and trying to do your QTAC application right before the deadline to have them submitted, don't use BPay because it will probably take too long and you'll not be put into the offer round that is just about to happen. So use a credit card. Okay, awesome. So that's how to use a QTAC application. That's how to set up your account and get going with the preferences and put it in all your education experience. Hopefully that's been helpful for anyone who's doing an application in 2021. Good luck. Hope you get the course that you want.